Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on another small lever drag reel. This one is an Avet SX, brought to me by Frank, who's been watching our channel. And Frank tells me he fishes his reels very hard, and that this one has gotten sluggish. And just by kind of turning it in free drag, yeah, it's gotten sluggish. So let's take this apart. We'll do a service on this one. We'll try and figure out why it's bogging down, and hopefully we'll just put it back together again, make it work well for Frank to take out again. So, as many of you know, I start by doing a couple of things. One is putting a glove on my hand that is my non-working hand, or my non-dominant hand. And the other thing is that I use a parts tray, which is right behind me there. A little bit on camera, a little bit off maybe. And I like to keep all of these pieces of parts in a sequence, and as I always recommend, I like to also take pictures along the way, and that's why I have the video running here, among other things. And that way, if I get stuck along the way, and trust me, I do get stuck from time to time, I just simply go back and reference the part of the video and say, oh, that's the orientation of the piece, or I see why it's not working properly. I don't have it in the right location, or what have you. So right now I'm just taking off the face. That's the main gear here, and we've got the lever drag, which we'll take off next. And I think we can probably see already. I'm just noticing we got a lot of brown, almost muddied grease in here. So my guess is that this is probably bogging down with some dried grease. So we have those two pieces come out. I think we should be okay next. Now, I didn't get a schematic on this, so shame on me if something goes awry, but we're going to kind of go this one by feel. I've had these reels open before. They're not terribly different than the one that we did with the Canyon reel. And actually Frank brought me a Canyon reel as well. And these are fun form factors. This is kind of revolutionized inshore saltwater fishing. What you used to need a Pen 3.0 or 4.0 for, you can now do with one of these with the advent of braid, and just makes everything pretty light. Yeah, just looking at this being what it is, this pressure plate here is just totally caked with junk, and this just needs good cleaning. That's kind of what's going on here. Looks like we probably need a drag washer on there, drag on there as well, and I don't have the drag. So let's just start by taking out what we can, cleaning that up, and then getting ready for the balance of this. And we can see totally dried, totally greased up here. So not a problem. We'll take care of that, and ask Frank to bring it in before it breaks next time. But this one's just a example of why you should maintain your reels on a regular basis. Okay, I'm just going to see, I think this just appears to be grease. It is. And this is why the performance would be bogging, because this should be a smooth running pressure plate here, and this is just gummed up. So, lessons learned. And I'm using a bladed screwdriver for this to just help me along. And I think we're going to, before we get done here, we're going to need to order a replacement drag washer, because that one is just basically living on this pressure plate here. All of the adjustability on it is gone. Quite honestly, this plate isn't in the best of condition either. Use a little flat braided file just to get some of the high points of that stuff off here. It's not that you can't use the steel wall. The steel wall is just sometimes the file is a little bit faster for knocking off some of those edges. Okay, we're getting there. We'll get the slip back in this one. So we'll do what we can do on this one, and then we'll go order the replacement drag washer there, and when that comes in, that's easy enough to replace. So I'm just cleaning up the rest of this. It's okay that it's tarnished. It's not okay if it was pitted or rubbing or the like, so that's kind of the issue here, is there's a lot of tarnish on this one. Just want to test that ball bearing while we're at it. Test the ball bearing by taking a screwdriver and putting it in, making sure the internals are working, which it is. Just going to flood that with oil. A lot of dirt on this side. I'm just going to go ahead and hit this with some penetrating oil and put it off to the side. And then we'll come over, we'll grab that main gear out of there and clean that up. What I'm going to do is remove the two Phillips head screwdrivers here that's holding that arm in. Oh, that penetrating oil is doing its little thing. And then this is where cameras help. You can take your orientations on this. Duly noted. I'm going to pull that right out of there. It's just a little piece that's sitting in there. And then one of the things that we can do next is we can pull that main gear out, or push the main gear out. It's just simply a matter of pushing it through at this point. And then we can go clean the case in here. And we can see all of the stuff that's just dragging it. It's just pure dirt, grease, and grime. One time that was effective lubrication. Now it's actually to the detriment of the reel. Oops. That's the shim for the bearing. We'll put that right back on the main gear. Just lots of grease and grime and dirt and junk. Nothing that can't be remedied. He's lucky, but you can see how this reel can get you out of your way in a hurry. And this is where pictures are good, because you got identical slots here for that little lever, and it's always good to remember which side you came out of. And if you got lost in here and going to reinstall, you would get your answer there. Just go back to the pictures. I'm just flooding those bearings again. Got a little bit wider bearing here, so I'll use a wider screwdriver just to make sure it's turning. Some kind of little piece of line or something there. Do the same thing with this one. Okay, so we got the bearing turning, and just a little bit more cleanup on this one. Then we'll turn our attention to the main gears, and I'll just get that last little bit of dirt and grime. So dirt is the enemy of fishing reels in particular, and this one certainly had a consequence from it. Okay, let's go clean up the back side of this that's been soaking. Just take a paper towel, try and rub off the gunk and grease there. That's a whole lot better. Still have that tarnish on the side, so I'm going to recommend that this be replaced over time. It's smooth enough that it shouldn't have a detrimental effect. I'm more concerned about the drag washer here, in that that was picking up and eroding some of that on the fringe here. You might be able to see that on the camera. It hasn't worn through, but I don't typically like that. When I pull that spool out now, we've got the stack assembly. You don't need to change any of this stuff in a tune-up. All you want to do on this one is you want to make sure that it's all oiled. So we'll use Real X oil. We'll Real X that bearing. You have a shaft here. Just slipped off, that's fine. You can oil or you can grease that little shaft. It's the inner spool shaft. On this side of the bearing, or on this side of the shaft, you have a bearing and a spring and a little collar. You want to get those out just to make sure they're clean. And so I had an opportunity to look quickly. I went and grabbed the schematic for this one. Before I said I didn't have it, I just wanted to check. You have a spool assembly on this, but there is no replacement drag washer, so I took the time when I was paused there to check it out, and the Avet site says that is a permanent quote-unquote lifetime washer, that it is held on by a high temperature adhesive, and if you do need to replace this, the spool needs to go back to the factory. Do not attempt to remove this at home. They did recommend that you take some dishwasher detergent, a soft brush like a toothbrush or something like this, run it under the water and scrub it, and that'll clear out the grease from the pores, and that's what I've done here to the best I can. But again, I'll let the owner of this one know that that should be replaced. He's got about 80% right now of the drag. If this becomes a problem, that should be replaced. Okay, let's just go put this back together again, because there's not much to do other than to oil that bearing. You want to put the sleeve back on. I'll put a drop of oil under the sleeve. We can insert that through the bottom of the spool then. Once we have that through the bottom, we can grab the top bearing, the inside bearing there. There's a little spring that goes on here. There's a little washer that sits on top of that. And we have the pressure plate and its bearing. It's the wrong shim washer there. This is the shim washer I was looking for. Okay, so the spool is done, so you just want to take that spool then and put it back into the case. There's a crosshair, so you want to line that up. I'm just trying to get this braid back on the spool here. I just have a tendency of getting these things trapped when I reload the spool. There you go. Okay, so that's done. The site also said do not put grease onto that washer there. All right, so we have the pressure plate cleaned as best we can. On the back side of that then we have the bearing. No, not the bearing, the spool gear. That sits in the sleeve as such. I'm going to grab my grease and I'm going to grease up the spool gear. I'm using a Penn Precision Real Grease for that. That's ready to go. I've cleaned up we'll clean up the main gear here, get the dirt off of that. Same thing on the back. We'll grab the grease again. Want to get it on the teeth too, make sure that that has plenty of lubrication there. That already has the shim washer. You saw that come off earlier. I put that back on. So we're going to reinstall this, but before we do, we have to put that anti-reverse arm back on. So this is a good place for pictures. If you lost how this goes from a picture standpoint, you can go refer back to your picture. This thing slips over that little tag and then under the long arm of that eccentric spring before you can put that in. And you reload as such. And then this little tag end here goes into the housing. A little bit of a balancing act here, but can't do a better job with that. Yeah, well, it took some doing, but that's the way it works. It curls around so that it doesn't get stuck in the drive assembly. Then, of course, we had this little shield to hold that dog in place. We had the two little screws. And this time I actually have the schematic if I got lost on this one, but if I didn't, thank goodness the memory is still working here. That's one of them. There's another flathead screw in here. That's the beauty of the parts tray. That'll hold the dog in place so it doesn't slip out there. This is an old-fashioned dog. It's going to run by the eccentric. You're going to run it. You're going to be reeling away. And as soon as you go to back off, that spring is pulling it down, and that'll intersect with the back end here. Okay, next up then is the assembly of the pressure plate. I like to put the pressure plate in as opposed to putting it onto the spool. That way I get the gears to mesh. Again, no grease on that brake. Simply match the two up now, and we can close the case. And we can put those three screws in. They were all the same length, so you don't have to worry about which screw went in which hole. I've seen other reels. I think the Canon that actually he brought over is one of them that has one short screw on the case. So that Canyon reel, very similar to this one. So Avet's claim to fame is it's made entirely in the U.S. and it's a nice reel, as you saw internally, and you can get parts in that on Avet website. Okay, now we're going to just build up the outside here and install the free spool. Just working to get the, there we go, we got that. Just, if you're in free spool, the handle won't turn down here, and if you move it over and see it turning, then you've got this set proper. Next up is the handle and the handle nut. So we've got a reel here that I don't like to give back the way it is, but I don't have an alternative at the moment. I will explain it to the owner that his lack of attention here, oops, that's the wrong wheel. His lack of attention has caused the drags to wear to the point where he's got about 80% of the drag left. It's certainly fully operational except under the highest loads, but regardless, the true thing to do would be to both replace the spool and the brake plate, which has got some minor pitting on it for optimal performance. So you know, that's a consequence of not taking care of your reels. The parts wear prematurely, or in this case that's a lifetime drag according to Avet. That's seen its lifetime, I guess. But again, it's got about 80% surface area, so if you used to have a max drag of 10, now you got a max drag of 8. And it's it may or may not be unfortunate, but there is no replacement. You have to send it back to the plant and either buy a new spool or have it reloaded by them. Okay, let's give it a crank. We're in free spool. We should, I'll look at the difference on that reel already. It's full casting. All that sluggishness is gone. Let's go ahead up, put it on the brake. Certainly turning a whole lot easier. You want to adjust just to make sure you All right, full drag there. Half strike should have partial drag. Yep, we're good. As good as we can be given the situation with that on drag. So that's the Avet SX5. If you take care of them, they're going to last you a long time. Rather simple construction. You saw that, ball bearings on both sides in the spool. A pretty simple lever drag mechanism with the shaft and the brake plate, and relatively easy enough to do that you can accomplish the task in about 25 minutes. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please subscribe. If you want to see more, for sure, as I post frequently. Thank you for watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.